Developers Remedy have this incredible knack of conscientiously telling a story in such an intriguing and contemplative way that it demands you leave no stone unturned when navigating the world and the narrative that's been woven into their creations. Other games Remedy have developed, like Alan Wake and Quantum Break, are both of the same ilk, and Control is no different. They all leave such a narratively long-lasting impression after your first playthrough. These games are such a joy to unravel the mysteries within the well-structured storylines, but Control really doubles down on the mystery side of things though. I mean, literally everything in the game offers up intrigue and mystery. There is an abundance of video files to watch and these inviting documents to cipher that have vital information blacked out, and even this mysterious old school Batman style red phone that's known as the hotline, and this gives our protagonist Jesse access to the board, which is a paranatural entity that thankfully handed me some enjoyable supernatural abilities to play with, but not before they decided to confuse the shit out of me with their secretive coded mumbo-jumbo messages, again, purposefully leaving me on the edge of my seat by missing out essential pieces of information.
All you're gonna need to... and then go to...
Are you...
And you'll be saved.
What? Wait, I didn't hear a thing you just said.
Just... and then you'll be saved.
No, God, I missed the important part again. No. Oh my God.
And you'll be saved.
Please repeat what you're saying. I can't understand you.
The Bermuda Triangle. Please don't call again.
Our protagonist Jessie walks into a seemingly empty building known as the Oldest House after she's received a telepathic message from a freakish entity regarding the whereabouts of her kidnapped brother Dylan. The Oldest House is now home to the Federal Bureau of Control, otherwise known as the FBC, a secret government agency that oversees supernatural events and contains objects of power to study them. These objects of power can literally be anything from a thermos flask, which is a little homage to Alan Wake there, a TV, a merry-go-round, or even a piss-taking rubber duck that thinks it's funny quacking at me and disappearing at the last second. Even the abstracts of the supernatural seem to have a very good sense of humour. I'm sure you're thinking, Jesus, how much of the game is this guy spoiling for me? But trust me, I'm not even scratching the surface to this mind-boggling game. The first character that you'll meet is the janitor of the Oldest House, who's got this weird blended aura about him that's somehow welcoming but unsettling at the same time. The guy is a bit unzipped, to be honest, and he'll grace you with his Finnish and witty repartee throughout the whole game, as well as singing his favourite Finnish tango songs that can be heard on seemingly indestructible radios. He'll even introduce the concept that the Oldest House itself is in fact an object of power, and the peculiar abstract shapes the architecture of the building finds itself in is actually the Oldest House reshaping itself. The exploration of the Oldest House is served to the player really well. It's a very linear telling of the story, and this is all quite literally unravelled as Jesse cleanses certain points that have been infected by the enemies of the game, which are known as the Hiss, and once cleansed, the building's shape will shift back into a more comprehensible shape and more often than not unlock the next area to explore. This will also grant Jesse a checkpoint and a fast travel point that are embedded into the Metroidvania style level design. Most of the building is tied to the main story, but there's still a few areas to find that are locked behind the odd intriguing side quests. Now I thought that the map isn't that simple to follow in all honesty, and at times actually using the signs posted up around the building proved to be the best way to navigate the Oldest House, and I actually like that. Now I'm a sucker for a wide range of thematically changing environments and biomes within a single game, so even though there is a few areas that present a small change to the colour palette, I felt like the art style in general is a bit of a swing and a miss for me. The majority of the game is played in one of the most boring environments known to man, an office, but just in case you dared to get excited and thought it could be one of those hip and vibing offices with funky artwork all over the place, foosball tables and 17 vanilla frappe machines on every single floor, Remedy went for the bleakest greys and monotoned colour palettes possible. My issues with the art design don't stop there, unfortunately. So the effects of the Hiss as they either float about or they're shot to bits leave these psychedelic waves behind, which looks really cool in fairness, but in actual practice, killing a few of these guys in close proximity means you can't see a bloody thing as this murky puddle of petrol will take up the whole monitor. And then another thing was every time I'd enter a new undiscovered area, I'd be greeted by the name of that area written in this obnoxiously large font like for God's sake, would you please get those letters out of the fucking way, because I'm trying to shoot this lunatic, hypnotized floating man who's throwing massive chunks of concrete at my face. Now, that brings me on to the combat. I absolutely love the destruction. It looks immense, and it's so satisfying to see all of these particle effects and the random bits of debris being launched across the room. I love it. In fact, I feel kind of sorry for Jessie. It feels like one of those powers where there's no off switch or a middle ground to just being a little bit more gentle. Literally everything she touches is completely obliterated, to the point where you'd hate to be working for the Federal Bureau, and if you had to nip off to use the toilet only to hear Jessie has come to explore the same toilet you're trying to take a dump in. The thing is though, the destruction is a byproduct of the combat, and the combat itself is pretty simplistic and ages poorly throughout a single playthrough. So to explain briefly, another character, or corpse rather, that we meet is the former director of the oldest house, and from here we're given the one weapon we'll use throughout, the service weapon. Just like the oldest house, the service weapon can shapeshift into different types of weapons. It starts off as your standard pistol, but by finding new parts as the story progresses, we'll be able to upgrade the service weapon so it can shift into other weapons like a sniper, a shotgun, or a fully automatic weapon. The service weapon feels okay. It doesn't feel terrible, but in any form it just doesn't have that much oomph to it in any of its firing styles, and the audio effects of it sound pretty tinny too. What definitely has some oomph to it is Jessie's telekinetic ability, where she can pick up anything and launch it. This feels and sounds amazing. The objects that she throws don't even need to be tied down either, because she'll just rip a chunk of concrete out of the wall and launch that at the enemies too if the situation calls for it. The thing is though, I felt like the gameplay peaked at this point, and this is the very first ability that you'll unlock, and from here the satisfaction from upgrading Jessie's powers just felt like it plateaued. You'll unlock new abilities like mind control, which at times was more of a hindrance than a help, because the game calls for you to be constantly on the move, and slowing down to possess an enemy to fight on your side slowed the pace of the combat down, and rarely did these new friends of mine offer that much help. Then there's the ability to pull up a shield of concrete lumps, which is supposed to protect you, but I can't fire my weapon when the shield's up, so it's effectively just calling a timeout in the middle of a fight. You do have the ability to dodge, and that was far more useful than pulling up this shield though. And then there's the levitate ability, which I found more useful for exploring. Accessing those hard to reach places has now become possible. I even preferred levitation than using my shield, as floating away from the danger felt far more productive than just using my shield. There's around 5 or 6 enemy designs, most of which are humanoids wielding different weapons, so there's not that much variety in what you'll get to take on. Again, the variations peak way too early, and unfortunately it leaves the whole combat model feeling frustrating as to what could have been, because like I said, the launch ability is immense, and the ability that you unlock first shouldn't be the main ability that you can use to successfully complete the game from start to finish. There's a few side missions to play through, some of which are timed, and there's the jukebox missions, the jukebox being another object of power, and finding jukebox tokens will unlock new levels, taking Jessie to another realm to fight off waves of enemies to unlock new rewards. There's no new mechanics here or anything like that, just more of the same for players to get stuck into. Visually, it's a mixed bag, and there's a little bit of art design crossing over into the graphical fidelity side of things when I say that too. I mean, you can only make a grey building look so pretty at the end of the day, but there's still so much to be impressed by, with the character models in particular looking fantastic. The special effects, they look incredible, and smallest details to the sheer volume of destruction you can cause to the environment make the world of difference. Control was released alongside when ray tracing was hitting the gaming streets and became all the craze, and to be honest, it feels like Remedy were a little bit of a dog with a bone on this one. Walking into the oldest house for the first time with ray tracing on was intense.
This place is so shiny!
Remedy were given the keys to ray tracing, and they did not hold back. Some might prefer everything looking like a pristine mirror, but I felt like it was a bit too much for my taste, especially considering how well we've seen other games implement ray tracing. There's a ton of graphical options on PC, with DLSS being the one to help alleviate the performance impact of ray tracing, but the DLSS can cause a bit of artifacting and shimmering on metallic textures too, so pick your poison. Ultimately, if you've played Control before, then it's hard to recommend returning for a second playthrough. I thoroughly enjoyed enjoyed my first playthrough purely due to the fact that the story kept me invested from start to finish, but with the gameplay feeling a little average, the only way I'd recommend a second playthrough would be if you just can't remember the plotline. As time's progressed, a good story has become Remedy's signature for games that they develop, and they've absolutely delivered in that aspect. The story is worth it alone for first time players, and maybe you'll find a little more depth in the gameplay than I did, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.